To many, 1963 was the year that the United States lost its innocence. The civil rights movement seemed to come to a head. President Kennedy sent federal troops into Birmingham to help restore order. Kennedy made an extraordinary visit to West Berlin, where he was greeted by over 1 million people. In June, Medgar Evers of the NAACP was shot in front of his home. It was to take over 30 years to bring his killer to justice. More than 200,000 protesters came to Washington to demand passage of civil rights legislation. There, Martin Luther King gave his most well-known speech, in which he stated, "I have a dream." In October, President Kennedy signed a treaty with the Soviet Union limiting atomic testing. But the event that would most mark a generation occurred on November 22nd in Dallas, Texas. There, the life of President John F. Kennedy was ended by an assassin's bullet. Kennedy was not the first president to be assassinated, but he was the first to be killed in the era of national television. For 3 days, the nation and the world stood still as the president was mourned. In the midst of it all, the nation watched as Kennedy's assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald, was killed himself live on national television. To many, America would never be the same place again. 1963 was also the year in which Israel's founder, David Ben-Gurion, resigned for the last time. It was a year in which the Prime Minister of South Vietnam was assassinated with the help of the CIA, deepening America's commitment to the war. It was a year that the hotline was installed between Washington and Moscow to reduce the risk of accidental war. It was a year that Valium was introduced, a drug that would medicate millions. It was a year that the touch-tone phone was introduced into service. It was also a year that saw Betty Friedan publishing The Feminine Mystique, a work that would provide the impetus for a revolution in the relations between men and women.